Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving deep into the Adhyatam Upanishad, a text that, well, it gets straight to the point about spiritual truth. You might be surprised to hear that it starts with a prayer to the wind.
That's right. Not the usual sun or mountains we often see in these ancient texts, but the wind. It's intriguing, isn't it?
Definitely. So we're going to explore excerpts from Osho's discourse on this Upanishad. And, he always has a unique and thought-provoking way of looking at things.
Osho was a master at cutting through dogma and making these ancient teachings relevant to our lives. He really challenges us to go beyond intellectual understanding and actually experience the truth for ourselves.
That's what I love about him. He doesn't sugarcoat anything. So before we get into the wind metaphor, can you give us a little context? What exactly are Upanishads, and what makes this one, the Adhyatam Upanishad, so special?
The Upanishads are like the philosophical and spiritual heart of Hinduism. They're a collection of ancient texts that delve into profound questions about existence, consciousness, and the nature of reality. Now, the Adhyatam Upanishad is unique because it focuses on the direct experience of the divine within. The word Adhyatma itself means pertaining to the self, the inner self.
So it's less about rituals and more about inner transformation.
Exactly. This Upanishad is a guide to realizing the divine within, to experiencing the truth directly.
Well, Shot's often talked about the limitations of mere knowledge. He'd say things like, knowing can be a burden. It can drown you, not save you. How does that relate to this idea of direct experience that the Adhyatam Upanishad emphasizes?
He makes a brilliant analogy. Think of a seed sitting on a stone. It represents knowledge that's just stuck in your head and never sprouts, never grows. But a seed planted in fertile soil has the potential to blossom into something magnificent. The Adhyatam Upanishad provides that fertile soil for spiritual understanding to grow. Through direct experience.
It's not enough to just read about spirituality. We have to actually live it, right?
Absolutely. And the Upanishad highlights 3 levels of seeking: Kutuhala, Jivnasa, and Mumuksha. Kutuvala is like that initial spark of curiosity, that childlike wonder about spiritual things. Then there's Jivnasa, which is a more intellectual pursuit, wanting to gather information and understand the concepts. But the Adhyatam Upanishad speaks directly to the Mumukshu.
The Mukshu.
Yes. The Mumukshu is the seeker who's on fire, consumed by a burning desire for liberation. They're willing to stake everything on the pursuit of truth. This Upanishad is for those who are ready to go all in, to completely transform their lives.
So you're telling me this ancient text starts with a prayer to the wind. Why the wind? What's so special about that?
The wind is a brilliant metaphor for the divine. It's invisible, yet we can feel its power. It's all around us, yet we rarely notice it. Just like the wind, the divine reality is often unseen, yet it permeates everything. It's the very life force that sustains us.
So the Upanishad is using something we experience every day to point towards something much deeper.
Exactly. It's saying that the divine isn't some distant abstract concept. It's right here, right now, as present and powerful as the wind that surrounds us.
Okay, that's a pretty powerful image. Now, this prayer also asks for divine assistance on this spiritual journey. I know Osho had some strong opinions about prayer. What was his take on this?
Osho wasn't a fan of the traditional idea of prayer as begging or pleading with some external deity. For him, prayer was about cultivating humility and receptivity within ourselves, aligning ourselves with the greater cosmic energy.
So it's not about asking for things to change externally. It's about shifting something within us.
Precisely. And think about it even from a scientific perspective. While prayer might not change the weather, it can have a profound impact on our inner state. It can calm the mind, reduce stress, even boost our immune system.
That makes sense. But how does this prayer to the wind actually help us on that path?
Remember that seed analogy? Well, Osho describes the Upanishad as a beautiful song about a flower. He says, the song might inspire us, but it's not the flower itself.
So just reading about it isn't enough. We have to actually become the flower ourselves.
Exactly. And this prayer to the wind sets the tone for that journey. It's inviting us to experience the divine directly, to go beyond intellectual understanding, and step into a realm of profound realization.
So the Upanishad is like the map, but we have to take the journey ourselves.
That's a great way to put it. And that journey starts with recognizing the divine presence that's all around us, just like the wind.
This is already getting me thinking differently about things. But how do we actually cultivate that kind of awareness? Where do we even begin?
It all starts with a shift in perspective. Instead of looking for the divine in some far-off realm, we begin to recognize it right here, in the everyday moments.
So we're not talking about becoming monks and meditating in caves, right?
Yeah.
We can experience this transformation while living our normal lives.
Absolutely. Remember, Osho emphasized living the truth, not just knowing it. It's about integrating these teachings into every aspect of our lives, how we think, how we feel, how we interact with the world.
Okay, I'm starting to see how this applies to my life. But I have to admit, sometimes it feels like there's this huge gap between these beautiful spiritual concepts and the reality of daily life. You know, deadlines, traffic, bills. It's tough to stay connected to that inner peace when things get chaotic.
You've just hit upon one of the central challenges, and the Adhyatam Upanishad doesn't shy away from that. It acknowledges that the path isn't always easy, but it also provides us with tools to navigate those difficulties.
Tools, like what? Give me something practical I can use. When my inbox is overflowing and the kids are screaming.
Well, think back to those 3 levels of seeking kutuhala, jijnasa, and mumuksha. The Adhyatam Upanishad is speaking to the mumukshu, the one who yearns for liberation. But it also recognizes that we don't just magically arrive at that state.
So where do we start? How do we move from simple curiosity to that burning desire for transformation?
It's a journey, and like any journey, it begins with a single step. Maybe you start with that initial curiosity, that kutuhala. You start reading, listening to podcasts like this, exploring different ideas. Then that curiosity might deepen into jijnasa. You want to understand more, to delve into the intellectual side of things. And as you go deeper, you might find that something shifts within you. The information isn't enough anymore. You crave a direct experience, a profound connection with the truth. That's the emergence of mumuksha.
How would I even recognize that shift? What does that yearning feel like?
Imagine a tiny seed buried deep within the earth. It senses a warmth, a light, a pull towards something greater than itself. It begins to stretch and grow, pushing through the darkness, driven by an undeniable urge to blossom. That's what mumuksha feels like. An undeniable yearning to awaken to your true nature, to experience the divine within.
That's a beautiful image, and it makes so much sense. So this desire for liberation is what fuels the journey.
Exactly. It's the driving force that propels you forward, even when the path gets challenging.
Speaking of challenges, Osho talks a lot about the importance of integrating spiritual insights into daily life. But honestly, sometimes it feels impossible. How am I supposed to be mindful and present when I'm stuck in traffic or dealing with a difficult coworker?
The Upanishad reminds us that the divine isn't separate from our lives. It's not something we access only in special moments of meditation or prayer. It's woven into the fabric of our everyday experiences. Remember the wind.
Right. The wind is a metaphor for the ever-present divine.
Exactly. The wind is always there, whether we're aware of it or not. The same is true of the divine. It's present in every breath, every sensation, every interaction. The key is to cultivate a sensitivity to its presence.
So how do we do that? How do we tune in to that subtle energy when we're bombarded with distractions?
It starts with simple practices, like paying attention to your breath. Notice the rise and fall of your chest, the gentle flow of air in and out of your nostrils. You can do this anytime, anywhere, while waiting in line, washing the dishes, even during a stressful meeting. It's a way of anchoring yourself in the present moment, of connecting with that inner stillness that's always there, beneath the surface of the chaos.
I see how that could be helpful. But what about those bigger challenges, like dealing with difficult people? Sometimes it feels impossible to respond with compassion when someone is pushing my buttons.
The Upanishad emphasizes the importance of cultivating qualities, like compassion, humility, and non-attachment. Now, these aren't just lofty ideals. They're practical tools that can help us navigate those difficult situations.
But how do we actually put those qualities into practice? I mean,
Right.
it's easy to talk about compassion, but when someone is being rude or disrespectful, my first instinct isn't exactly to send them love and light.
That's completely understandable, remember. Compassion doesn't mean being a doormat. It's about recognizing that everyone, even the most difficult people, are on their own journey, carrying their own wounds and burdens.
So it's about seeing beyond their behavior to the human being underneath.
Exactly. And when you can tap into that sense of shared humanity, it becomes easier to respond with understanding, even if you don't condone their actions.
Okay, that makes sense. But how does humility fit into all of this?
Humility is about recognizing that you don't have all the answers, that your perspective is just one among many. It's about letting go of the need to be right all the time, of clinging to your ego's limited viewpoint.
That sounds pretty challenging, especially in a world that encourages us to be confident and assertive.
It is challenging, but it's also incredibly liberating. When you let go of the need to defend your ego, You open yourself up to a whole new way of being in the world.
And what about non-attachment? What does that even mean in a practical sense?
Non-attachment doesn't mean becoming emotionless or indifferent. It's about recognizing that everything in life is constantly changing. It's about letting go of our clinging to things, to outcomes, even to our own limited sense of self.
So it's about accepting the impermanence of life.
Exactly. And when we embrace that impermanence, we free ourselves from the suffering that comes from trying to control things that are ultimately beyond our control.
Wow, this is giving me a lot to think about. It seems like this journey is about so much more than just meditation and spiritual practices.
It's about a complete transformation of how we see ourselves and the world around us.
So how do we know if we're actually making progress on this path?
The Adhyatam Upanishad, along with Osho's insights, offers us a simple yet profound measure of progress. It's not about achieving some grand spiritual state. Not at all. The real measure of progress is the quality of your being.
What does that even mean?
It means asking yourself, am I becoming more loving, more compassionate, more peaceful? Are you experiencing more joy, more gratitude, more connection in your daily life?
So it's about the inner transformation, not the outward achievements.
Exactly. And the beautiful paradox is that as you focus on cultivating these inner qualities, the external aspects of your life often start to fall into place, naturally.
So it's not about chasing success or happiness. It's about becoming the kind of person who naturally attracts those things.
Precisely. When you align yourself with your true nature, you radiate a certain energy that draws in the right people, opportunities, and experiences.
That's a powerful idea. It's almost like the universe responds to the energy we're putting out.
That's a great way to put it. And the Adhyatam Upanishad provides a roadmap for aligning with that divine energy that's already within us.
This whole conversation has been eye-opening. It's like you've given me a new lens
Yeah,
through which to view my life, my challenges, and even my spiritual practice.
I'm glad to hear that. Remember, this Upanishad isn't about imposing a rigid set of beliefs or practices. It's an invitation to explore your own inner landscape, to discover the truth that resonates with your heart.
So where do we go from here? What's the next step on this journey of inner transformation?
The next step is the one you choose to take. Maybe it's incorporating some of the practices we've discussed, like mindfulness or cultivating compassion. Maybe it's diving deeper into the Adhyatam Upanishad itself. Or perhaps it's simply bringing a greater sense of awareness to your daily life.
So it's about finding what works for each individual, what resonates with their own unique journey.
Exactly. There's no one-size-fits-all approach to spirituality. The key is to be open, curious, and willing to experiment.
You've given us a lot to think about today. Before we wrap up, is there anything else you'd like to share with our listeners?
Just this. Remember that the divine isn't something separate from you. It's not something you need to search for, outside of yourself. The Adhyatam Upanishad reminds us that the truth is right here, right now, closer than your own breath.
So we've heard the song, felt the wind, maybe even glimpsed the flower. Now the Adhyatam Upanishad, as interpreted through Osho's lens, invites you to take the next step and to become the flower yourself. What does that mean for you? What resonates with you from this conversation? We encourage you to explore these ideas, to turn inward, to discover the truth that lies within. Until next time, keep diving deep.